happy welcome to you all for the discussion of a software process model. Software process is a coherent set of activities for specifying, designing, implementation, and testing the software system. Several process model steps through which the product progress normally. So several spaces in this software process model. In the requirement base, we are going to gather what are the requirements needed for the software development. Then in specification, we have to define what the system should do. In design and implementation phase, we have to define the organization of the system. In the integration phase, we have to combine the programming codes into a single unit model. Maintenance phase, we have to check whether any changes or service needed by the customer. This is a build and fix model. No particular specification here, and there is no design model here. First, we are building one version, and then we can check whether it is satisfied by the client means then it is okay, or otherwise we again have to modify that software based on the customer needs. So it is a total unsatisfactory method because of the high cost and very difficult maintenance phase. This is a best example of a process framework which we call it as a umbrella activity. A process is a collection of activities, actions and tasks that are performed when some work product is to be created. Activity is nothing but a person who tries to achieve a broad objective. Action that include a set of tasks that produce a major work product. Example is the architecture design model, and a task focus on a small but well defined objective. Here a process framework establishes the foundation for a complete software engineering process by identifying a small number of framework activities. There are 5 phases in this generic process framework. Number 1 is communication, then 2 planning, then 3 modeling, 4th one is construction, and then 5th one is deployment. So here in this communication phase, critically important to communicate and collaborate with the customer. In planning, it's like a roadmap. This will work by describing the technical task. In modeling, actually it creates a model to help developers and customers understand the requirements of the software design. Construction phase, actually this activity combines code generation and testing that is required to uncover the errors. Then finally deployment, the software is delivered to the customer. So there are several processes here and methods that we can implement these 5 phases. So the first type of process flow is linear process flow. Second method is iterative process flow. Third process flow is evolutionary process flow. You can easily understand. So this is a linear process flow. So every phase happen one by one. In an iterative process flow, one or more process will be repeated. So the evolutionary process flow happen in a circular manner. So in parallel process flow, here you can see that the communication planning happen at a simultaneous manner and they provide the output. Actually this waterfall model, linear sequential life cycle model. So here each phase must be completed before we proceed to the next phase. So there will be no overlapping in the phases. Waterfall model, it suggests a sequential approach to software development. So here in this communication phase, they initialize the project based on the requirement analysis and the specification phase. Second phase is planning. Here they scheduling what are the necessary requirements to start the development process. Then modeling deals with the system design and analysis of the particular component. Then the fourth phase, they have the coding purposes. Finally, they deployed the output process. This is how the process will go. So based on the requirement analysis, they understand the exact requirements of the customer. The software requirement specification phase. In both the phases, they have the requirement analysis, the design phase. Here it takes them into a suitable form, which permits further coding in a programming language. Next phase is the implement and unit testing. Here during this phase, the design is implemented as the quality of the end product is determined by the effectiveness of the testing. Then finally, the maintenance is a task performed by every user once the software has been developed to the customer. Advantages of the waterfall model. This model is applicable only for small projects only, and it is very easy to understand. The requirements of the projects are predetermined and hence It is very easy to manage, but it has some drawbacks. With this model can be uncovered until we perform the testing, and the risk is also high. The next model we are going is a V model. We call it as a verification and validation model. So it follows a sequential design process, same as the waterfall model. So testing of the device is planned in parallel with the corresponding stage of development. A static analysis method, which is a review method done without executing the code. It is a process of evaluation of the product development process to find whether the specification requirements are met. And in this validation, it involves the dynamic analysis method. They both are functional and non-functional. So testing can be done by executing the code. There are 5 phases. So they are a business requirement analysis, then the system design, architecture design, model design, and coding phase. So in this validation phase also, it is having unit testing, integration testing, then system testing, then the acceptance testing. That V model is well defined. Be used for small to medium sized projects. Next, we go for the incremental method. Development process where the requirements are broken down into multiple modules. So here each iteration must pass through separate requirements, design, coding, and testing. So the final product should take a range of between 5 to 25 iterations. Iteration model has the requirement gathering and analysis. Then the design. In the design phase, the team design the software by different diagrams like data flow diagram, activity diagram, class diagram, state diagram, etc. So in the implementation, the requirements are written in the coding language, and in testing, the software testing starts using different test methods. And then the deployment. So after completing all the phases, software is deployed to its own environment. Finally, we review the product. So in the maintenance phase, the deployment of the software in working the environment. Just of this method is it's very flexible model because of the cost implementation is very low, and debugging also is very easy as there are n number of iterations, and it generates quickly and yearly software life cycle. Drawback is that the cost of the final product may sometimes exceeds the initial planned value. So clear and complete planning is required before start of the project. The planning of the design is also required. The demand for the customers and additional functionalities during every iterations may cause problem. The waterfall model and the rapid prototyping typing models, they deliver the product on the end, but this incremental model, they deliver the product at each stages, having always a variety of advantages because of its flexibility, less expensive, and the model cost is less. The drawbacks of the incremental model, and good planning is needed, and the architecture does not meet all the requirements. Iteration phase is rigid. So when to use this model? So only when we know about the requirement of the system well, and when we have a demand for an release of early product, and when the team are not very well skilled or trained, we have to use this. So when we are having a high risk features, and sometimes this method when needed for web application and product based companies. Thanks for watching the video. In the next video we can discuss about the software evolutionary process model.